Good morning. Question I'll pose at the beginning of this homily is, who do you fear? Who are you afraid of? You might be sitting next to them in the pew. We fear certain people for different reasons. They may have the power to end our working career by firing us. They may be in some other threatening way in relation to us. They have power over us. So there's some fear. But the thing about the readings today is we're confronted with contrasting types of fear. We've got the blessed the man who fears the Lord. We're singing it. And then we've got this guy who's so afraid that he gets called a wicked, lazy servant and thrown out into the darkness. So the sort of fear is more important than the fact of fear. In a certain sense, that holy fear, the fear of the Lord we heard about and we sung about, is a reverence or an awe for a person. And we may have that so we may be afraid of our parents in the holy way or the not holy way. Like afraid we're going to get home and we're going to get lashed with the belt for miscellaneous unknown reasons, or desirous to perform well in school, to be honorable and full of integrity in our lives because we see in our parents a great example, an expectation for us that inside of us we correspond with. And so we want to do well. It doesn't mean, depending on how our skills and talents were divvied up, doesn't mean we'll always do well, but we'll strive. And that is also a response of a certain type of fear. So as we look at this array of readings, we want to be people who are aware of the Lord and desirous to serve him, but not, cowering in a corner, afraid of what he'll do to us, but serving him with freedom, aware of his love, and responding in love to him. And the thing is, we can look at our lives and we can see other people, and we can see that maybe they've got more spiritual gifts than we do, or maybe they're just more generally talented than we are. And we can say, well, let them, they can do the religion thing. They can do that, and I'll do my thing. Or we can almost be apathetic in the face of the Lord, and that is obviously not healthy at all. It doesn't even rise to the level of awareness of his presence, of the gifts we've received from him. So we've got these three men who receive these weighty gifts, two of whom live a reverence and awe of the master, one who cowers in fear because he's been given less and he's afraid. Where are we at on our journey? What do we consider when we look at our lives at the end of each day? Are we people who are aware of our limitations, but nevertheless striving to serve the Lord in our homes, in our communities, at our workplace? Or are we timid and pathetically afraid? Considering these readings and was reminded of a fella named Barney Casey, born in 1870 in Wisconsin. It's unknown whether he voted in this election or not, but Barney was the sixth of 16 kids born to a farming family, an Irish farming family, and wanted to get off the farm, saw that wasn't the life for him, and did a few different things. Did some odd jobs, and then he found himself, actually he was a jail guard for a while there in Wisconsin, and he had a couple stints as a streetcar driver. In the midst of that, he actually was almost, well, he pursued marriage, and that didn't work out either. He wasn't so bright. You may say that, not 2 talents or 1 talent, but maybe he got like a 1/10 of a talent. But Barney knew the Lord and desired to serve him with whatever he was going to do with his life. One day on the streetcar, he had to stop the car because a lady was slain right across the tracks. And getting out and surveying the scene, there was a sailor who had committed a very grievous crime right there in the street. And this fellow was cursing the woman, cursing the streetcar. I don't know what that was about, cursing Barney, cursing God. And it awakened in him an awareness that the world needed more God. And so he goes into the seminary in Milwaukee, and there discovers he wasn't very good at this studying school thing. He couldn't pick up the Latin and the German that they were teaching the classes in at that time, and eventually they send him away and said, "Sorry, buddy, this isn't for you." Well, in prayer one day, he heard the voice of a woman say, "Go to Detroit." Now, if you ever hear a voice of someone telling you to go somewhere, you can always check in with a priest or something to see if that's, I don't know if I'd want to go to Detroit now, but so he goes to Detroit. He joins the Capuchins there on the Christmas Eve of, I think, 1896. And he again struggles. He's terrible at school and the studies he was required to do. And just can imagine, I can't imagine just being consistently subpar. Actually, I'm remembering back to my baseball career. And never let us stop thinking about that. I'll have to go to therapy but being subpar over and over again, and finally they make the decision to ordain him a priest. But they tell him, they call it a simplex priest. They didn't give him the right to preach or the privilege, the faculty to preach or to hear confessions. So they're like, "You're a priest, but you can't do anything except basically say mass by yourself." You're like, "Can we still get that for our priests? Can we take the preaching away?" The experience didn't discourage him. He was asked to be the doorman at the friary. He was also asked to be a messenger, and he did those things with great joy. And soon people got to talking with his now name was Solanus Casey. He got a new name when he became a Capuchin priest. And Solanus, in this role, was very, very loving and very dutiful about making sure he prayed for those people who came to the door and asked for his prayer. And soon it was determined that this fellow who didn't have a lot of gifts, actually, he liked to sing and play the violin, and he was not good at either of those either. His brothers in the monastery would not permit him to play the violin in their rec room. So he would play for the Lord in church when no one else was there. But he had this gift of prayer, and he offered it for people. And soon there was an awareness that his prayer seemed to work better than some other people's. And people would come and really from all around, and he was transferred a few times, but wherever he was transferred, people would discover his love for Jesus, his love for them, and they would bring him their problems, and he would pray. And miracles often ensued. Not always, but often ensued. This man who was not talented enough to preach from the pulpit preached with his life. And he died in 1957, having lived his whole life never having known that he actually did receive the right to preach and hear confessions. It was in his file, but he was so humble, he never asked. And the young monks who would see him say Mass said he would almost levitate. Because he couldn't preach, he tended to say Mass privately at the monastery, and they called him the friar, the brother who says Mass, because he was the only one sort of like that. And he said they would almost levitate how holy the experience of watching him celebrate the Mass was. But he went to God in 1957, and miracles have ensued subsequently. And it'd be worth bringing your needs to his awareness as you look at your own life. He was raised to the altar as a beata. He was now Blessed Solanus Casey at a big ceremony at Ford Field in the year 2017. And so as we look at our lives, whatever deck or hand we've been dealt, the Lord is interested in our offering that in risk for him in the circumstances we find ourselves, not some other set of circumstances. Let's beg for the grace. Let's ask the Lord to really, with his help, look at our lives and be open to holy fear, not servile fear, so that we might, like Solanus, be his. And here, pray God at the end of our lives, well done, my good and faithful servant. Come share your master's joy.